Yeah, very exciting few matches we've got here now, of course, with the first one. It's going to be a slobber knocker. It's going to be a very close one, you know. Of course, DeadDraw's already taken out one very angry, aggro opponent, and now, you know, it's got to face another one now with Toast. It's going to be quite interesting stuff.
Yeah, he's what he came here to beat. He came here to beat aggro. He's finally queued into aggro lineups. He's the guy. I've actually joined the hype train for DeadDraw. I've decided it's his tournament to win. And Paradox is a bit of a villain backstage. People don't like his celebrating. They just want to get on with the games, and they want to bring him down. So there's a villain, there's a hero. Oh, so excited.
Wow. It's like the MCU, mate. The cinematic universe is being set up. It's fantastic. Paradox he would be famous, really, wouldn't he? He's got the chin for it. So I reckon it works. I reckon it works. But the game we are going to have coming up should be a good one. DeadDraw, as you've said, facing off against Toastmonster. And again, 3 players left in the tournament. Paradox waiting to see who his challenger will be from these 2 men before you. What are we thinking with this one? Because it really means a lot for both of them.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting storyline here. Of course, with Toast, he came second last season. But this year, he's become very well established. For example, you know, with Toastmonster, he's actually won one of the last I-Series, which is I-63. He's in part of the XGG team. So this year has been really well for him. But now with DeadDraw, you know, his first event, and already he's established himself after this event. He's already got that top 3, but we spoke about it before. He's got very, very good lineups here. And, you know, either one of these 2, even if they go further from this, will be a good chance against Paradox as well.
Yeah, I think Paradox is more scared actually of facing the aggro lineups. They're the lineups that he's a bit sort of weaker against. He really wanted to face Paradox because Paradox he really wanted to face Mysterious because Mysterious had Token Druid, which is the deck he had come here to beat. These guys don't have it. It's going to be closer games in the final no matter what happens. He'd rather face DeadDraw because they're more mirrored matches. There's sort of more chance for him to sort of get ahead and win those games rather than getting rushed down by the aggro that he's weak to, that Toastmonster has.
It's a possibility here for... In terms of the game, what are we going to see then, really, in the overall flow of the game? Because obviously we've had quite a slow day once again. Some of the matches have been a little bit more faster pace. Getting into this one, as it is such an important game for both of these 2 players. If you imagine for Toastmonster, the fact that in his mind, he's that close to, at the very least, having a guaranteed second place once again, or being able to challenge it. If he took down Paradox for the first, that'd be a huge win for him. And for DeadDraw, the fact he's even got this far already is crazy.
Yeah, we spoke about it before, you know, during all the weeks of the Prems, we went 3-0, and that's when we thought to ourselves, well, you know what, he's obviously become a very good player. We already know from the community and everything like that, but, you know, he's a well-respected high legend player, and he's never really had an opportunity to crack into the tournament scene, but his first event so far, already top 3, but I think even now he's hungry just for that little bit more, and it could be a quick series, but it could go either way. So, of course, with Toast, we know what he's like with his aggro lineups, but he's picking bans that could be very, very important here. But we did speak about it a little bit before. I was mentioning that it wouldn't surprise me if, for example, DeadDraw's always gets banned because it's very good against aggro. And I think, of course, Leroy said probably get the that aggro mage ban, but that's completely understandable considering his deck lineups he has.
Yeah, so he's probably going to ban the deck that's sort of the most aggressive, farms his lineup the best, which is the aggro mage, and Toast is going to ban the odd warrior because that's the deck that's best against aggro. It sort of has the best lineups there. So I think it's quite simple bans. Could be that Toast, or it could be that DeadDraw decides he doesn't fancy old rogue instead. But expect that.
Yeah, and we do actually have those bans coming through now as well, Leroy, so we can check them out and see if it is what you predicted or if this is going to be a bit of a switch-up. So what you're imagining there?
Exactly what we were talking about. He's banned the mage, the warrior's banned.
See, we're good with predictions here.
Know,
we know what we're talking about.
Job, didn't you, Eric?
Well, I think so. I think so.
Leroy is better, but...
Well, what can I do? You know, I do my best. Like, you know, you've got to give me some credit for that. So,
Batman and
Robin. I'm sure if we switch sides,
if
you stood on the left, because we've obviously established that the left is the best place to stand, and it makes you sort of better in just general.
I suppose it depends on the camera view, really. But you know, just see how things go.
That's the problem with the casting meta right now. Is it's very up and down. Since the new expansion comes out, things have been a little bit wild. Oh. It's really been hard. Obviously, Quest Leroy has been interesting to play. I've seen that you've been doing well with that.
Yeah. Oh, Quest Leroy. Yeah, you've got to sort of get onto the desk to start with. You stand on the left. Plays games.
Do a loop around the
desk.
Games
play themselves out after that. It's quite easy.
But one thing as well, if we're Batman and Robin, what are you going to be?
I'd be the Penguin, mate.
Yeah.
No, Batgirl had a good run. Batgirl was in one of those films, the old sort of Batman films, where they took on some of the rubbish villains that no one really remembers.
Fancy, bit of Batwoman.
Jim Carrey as the Riddler.
Oh yeah.
That?
Yeah, that
I'd be a bit of Jim Carrey. Could I just be the Mask instead?
You can be. Well, you've got a snazzy jacket for it, but it's just not yellow.
No, that is very true. Harry, here's one I wanted to pick your brains with, something that I feel like could be actually quite integral to Hearthstone that people don't realise from behind the scenes, from what I've been watching with my eagle eyes. the choice of music that a player goes for when they walk into this, it's been quite varied. Duncan, he's a reggae man. That seemed to help him, get him set up and actually allow him to excel. What do we think the type of music they're going to be going for? As Toastmonster, I saw him setting one up. It seemed like it might have been metal. Couldn't quite tell.
Oh, he's always, honestly, always talking about his favourite Slipknot albums. Oh. He really likes the first one, the self-titled one with Wait and Bleed on it. That's what he likes.
He's a big fan of that?
Massive fan.
Well, Leroy, you know if you're 5'5", then I'm 6'6", so what's it like to be a heretic?
See, I wouldn't know because I just turn the music off in game. Just like keep it chilled, you know. Keep
Well,
it
they can't have that. They've got the sounds on. Anyway, into game one.
Yeah, this looks like we're ready for it. DeadDraw versus Toastmonster. The music's probably blaring for them, but for you, unfortunately, you will be dealing with Leroy and Old Man. So let's get into the action.
Thank you very much, Jackie. And yeah, cracking into this now. Are you too surprised with the two lineups they've chosen to begin with?
I don't think so. I think at this point, it's basically DeadDraw's just trying to push through his decks, beat as many aggro as possible, as quickly as possible, and really do what his lineup is designed to do. That's what he came here for. We alluded to it earlier, but DeadDraw wants to beat aggro. He expected it, and it's taken him a long time to face it. Finally, he's there. Finally, he's getting some, and he's even kept Spellstone. It's all part of the same game plan. He just wants to kill the minions early. Eventually, the decks that he's playing have so much better late game and so much survivability that they get to a point where they just reach a turning point in the game and crush Toastmonster, which is what he's obviously going to try and avoid here.
It's quite funny as you say that because, you know, you're saying how, you know, DeadDraw would, you know, love to play some aggro lineups here and there. And so far this Sunday as well, or sorry, Saturday, it's just the fact that, you know, he's already played one previously and he's got another one. He's just, you know, he's having a good day so far.
Yeah, it's finally worked out for him. All the aggro lineups have beaten all the people that sort of he was better at, like he was less favoured against, sort of like the Big Ben lineup, the ball control lineup. They've gone, they lost to the aggro, and now DeadDraw sort of gets his way, which is why I think moving forwards he's looking potentially quite favoured. He's looking like someone who could be one of the second ever person to come from the losers bracket and actually win the whole thing.
Yeah, that's the weird thing as well, is the fact that for Paradox and DeadDraw, this is both their first Hearthstone tournament and event here, and it's just the fact that, you know, there's that strong possibility now where, you know, we could both see them in the final, but, you know, still early days yet. With Toast, we did see before with Mysterious, who did go 2-0 to begin with, did get reverse swept, wasn't the best,
yeah.
But of course, with the lineups he had, it's very, very difficult with that odd pally, but we know Toast doesn't have that now, and, you know, with that aggro mage band, still not a strong possibility, but you never know. He does have different lineups here and there. That odd pally's not in his deck, so, you know, he could be okay. We'll have to see how things go.
Yeah, and you can see sort of DeadDraw is enacting the game plan already. He's, instead of ramping with the wild growth that he drew sort of unluckily the turn after he really wanted it, he's played the Spellstone, he's played the Hero Power, and he's removed the 3/3. He's saying, look, as long as I keep you off the board early, and I can see that you've had sort of a bad draw where you haven't played a 1-drop, where you haven't played an ideal 3-drop, I'm going to be okay. And that's sort of what he's going for here.
Yeah, he's pretty much loving it at the moment, as you can see with DeadDraw now. Does have that wild growth anyway to increase his ramp a little bit further. He's still got that swipe as well. He's got Wrath, and of course with the Golem as well. He's got so many different variants and options now. He's in a great place, but Toastmonster, a little bit of the opposite side of the spectrum here.
Well, he's set up sort of cleverly. He understands he's got a bad draw, but one thing about Toastmonster is he's fantastic at playing these sorts of decks. Well, he's probably quite fantastic at playing all decks, to be honest. But
sure?
He's set up, oh, definitely. But he's set up here so that he can play the green skin and have what is effectively an Ashbringer as early as possible, where he's just swinging with this 5/3 weapon into stuff, and it hasn't lined up well against the Golem, but he didn't really have many other options, so he's set up to get the most value out of the green skin, which I thought was just a nice little play there. Yeah,
seeing that green skin is quite an interesting one to have in his deck, but you know, every time I see that card, I just get bad flashbacks of Pirate Warrior. Like, does every time I see it, so I'm just like, oh yes, you know, that card, pretty much.
We used to be in a position where Pirate Warrior was so fast and so aggressive that it would just take you out of the game immediately. Now, the aggro decks are still slower, so you can see, for example, that Toastmonster, and in fact every other aggro deck, plays cards like the Fungalmancer. He's playing Myra's Unstable Element. It just drags the game out longer because you don't have the 1-drops and the 2-drops that the game used to have that are far, far better at pushing games through.
Yeah, this is it, and at the moment, Toast has got a lot of ingredients in, but hasn't really got any small minions to at least put him on board and try and get anything going. It's been a little bit struggle for him, but he can trade with that 3-1, but it's a bit of a waste of a weapon, really. Of course, it is 5-2 currently, and You know, it's not really something you actually want. And even with that Cold Blood as well, like maybe if you had a Squire to start with or even like a Firefly or anything like that, it would have been okay, would have been in a decent spot, but he didn't really get the mulligan he really wanted, in full fairness.
Yeah, it happens. It happens rarely, it happens infrequently, but when it happens, you have to be prepared to play to your outs. Unfortunately for him, it's meant that this Ironwood Golem has effectively had 10 health. So if he can sit there and and sort of pretend that it had 10 health, he'll feel a lot better about what's happened to him. Otherwise, he's got these clunky 5-drops in hand. He's got Leroy, Myra's Unstable Element, and he's got double Fungalmancer. They are cards that just don't help you get the early aggression that you need in order to beat a deck like Mill Druid that's going to armor up really significantly. When it gets to the UI turn, it's going to take board off of you, getting a 5/5 and potentially a couple of Arcane Tyrants on board too. It's going to get out of hand very quickly for Toastmonster, and it could be curtains quite soon, I think.
Yeah, this is an early opportunity for Toast now, because at least that way he can get that Diamond down, get Fungalmancer down as well. So he's trying to do everything he can, because it's like you mentioned before, he has a very small window of opportunity now. It's just a matter of time, really, because if it starts going to a little bit later on in the game, he's kind of like delaying inevitable. And, you know, if he gets too many minions down, which of course he's only left to 3 there so far, that's when he can make some kind of use of the Plague.
Yeah, I actually love that he's recognised that as well. He's recognised that his opportunity to win is short. So last turn, instead of potentially taking a bit easier, maybe playing just the Mole or a Cold Blood or just the Fungalmancer, he's played everything. He's played everything, he's gone face, he's pushed the maximum amount of damage because he knows that he doesn't have time. He knows that he has to get through the damage as quickly as possible, play the Fungalmancer next turn, potentially play the Myra's Unstable Element or the Leroy to finish him off or search for more answers, or well, not more answers, more threats, and get there before things get, well, just unbearably out of control, which is where they're heading.
Yeah, that's fair enough. If he did have all 3 minions on the board and that as well, and used Leroy, he still would have only had 25 damage, so he still would have been off lethal anyway. But so far, he's just going to clear up anyway, which of course we expected. But he is saving that Plague anyway if he's in a pretty bad spot, which is obviously good just due to the fact that, you know, some stage of this game, it can get a little bit out of hand, like you mentioned. But even now, like, you know, he can use the Tar Creeper here, he can combine it with the Fungalmancer, which he's doing again. So again, he's got a nice little ball control here.
Yeah, like his deck is slower, but it's still got this powerful mid-game where you can draw like this and you can hit your Tar Creeper. And although that's a card that's better against aggro, sort of in aggro mirrors, where you obviously use the hero power and the Tar Creeper to fight the board super hard early, what it is very good at is being buffed. And when it gets buffed, it obviously becomes a 5/7 Fungalmancer, and suddenly it's very hard for DeadDraw to get through that without the use of a Naturalize, which we can see he doesn't have in hand.
Well, this is the one bit I was worried about as well, as the fact that when he used that Plague, I knew he had a Tyrant anyway, so it's just to help complement it a little bit further. But the Golem does as well, and when I saw that second Tyrant appear, he had absolutely no reason to play that anyway. And even now, it's looking very difficult for Toast here.
Yeah, so he's gone for his last sort of gambit here, where he has to draw all of his cards, and next turn is going to be his basically final push for tempo. This turn, it was sort of unfortunate that he drew the Vilespine Slayer because he had 9 mana and he had 3 cards that all cost 5, so it was very difficult for him to piece anything together sort of meaningfully. It was very difficult for him to actually play a good turn, a turn that competes with the sort of tempo that DeadDraw put out last turn, where he played 3 taunts that were 1/5s, he played a 3/6, he gained 6 armor, and he played 2 4/4s. That was a real tempo push from him, understanding again the matchup and how quickly he needs to fight for board.
Yeah, let's have a look at this now. Of course, we did see Toast from earlier where, you know, he didn't have too much card draw anyway, he wasn't really looking too good. But look at this now, he does have that Giggling Inventor, he can do that with the Blood Knight to get that to a 9/9. And even though there is a few options for him here, but he's got to be very wary of what could happen as well.
Well, he's going to be very wary now that he's copied Toast's hand. He can see everything. He can, if he had infinite time, he could work out exactly how to play this game in a way that wins him the game. None of those cards have randomness effects. They're not like Blink Fox, which would give you a random Druid card. He sees everything, and he knows everything, and he can use that knowledge to his advantage, and he can close out the game here. He can make the correct plays, play around the right cards. He can hold the Blood Knight, for example, to know to play it when Toast plays the Giggling Inventor. He also knows, for example, when that gets played, the Vilespine is then going to kill his Blood Knight. So there's lots of quick decision making, lots of quick understanding of what's happening here that has to be taken into account. But a player of his caliber should be able to do that. Yeah, that should be fine at the moment. And he's trying to see if there's anything more he can do just to make sure.
nothing has come out of the way here, but how much room for opportunity has Toast got now, looking at the circumstances?
Well, it's tough, but he has the same cards too. He knows what DeadDraw's got. So again, he'll be working out how he can win. He'll be thinking, oh, I can play the Giggling Inventor. I can potentially use the Vile Spine Slayer to kill something here. But he knows there's a Blood Knight. So he knows that as soon as he does that, the Blood Knight comes down, the minions and the hero trade into the Annoyatrons, which lose their Divine Shield, and then the Leroy that he knows is coming through will kill him. So it's game, set, and match, I believe, for Toastmonster. I don't think there's any way out for him.
Yeah, there's not really too many options here. It's, you know, that Plague and the Double Tyrant and the Golem there just really didn't help things through it. So I think we kind of knew that there was a chance where if that does get played, and it's like I mentioned before, those 2 Tyrants and the Golem just really helped complement that Plague straight afterwards. There's not really too much he could have done. And just to add as well, we've got Ben on the desk here. How you doing?
Very well, very well. A little bit disappointed to see how Toast is getting on so far, but he's still got plenty more opportunities to try and get through to the lower bracket winners.
This is it. You've got one member of the M&M Labs left to step in. Hopefully, we'll see how he gets on. Not the greatest start, not going to lie, but...
But one thing that was interesting to think is DeadDraw and Paradox is their first ever ESL tournament, and Toastmonster is only his second, so it's kind of a changing of the guard.
Yeah, it's like all the new bloods are slowly coming in the scene and kind of just pushing us away, really, pretty much. But as you can see now, DeadDraw is up 1-0. And come to think of it, you know, Toastmonster don't have the best of starts, as you could tell, but he could play that deck again, which shouldn't be a problem. But what do you feel like Toast has to do now in the circumstances he's in?
Just has to keep playing his decks as well as he can, I think. It's one of those situations where he probably is fully aware that he's unfavoured. He won't let that play on his mind. He won't be thinking about that too much. What he needs to do is he just needs to focus. He's a very intelligent player and he understands the game, and that, yeah, sure, you won't always win. You won't win every game. It's a card game. Like, even chess players don't win every game. But what he can do is he can try and play as best as he can. He can make sure that every game he tries to think about his outs as best as possible and play to the best that he can. And on some days, that will be good enough here.
Have you not seen my chess skills?
I haven't seen the chess skills.
Good, because it'd be bad. But anyways, because we were talking about before how, you know, of course, Toast's aggro mage was banned. Completely understandable, completely obvious, yeah. And of course, with the Odd Warrior, again, completely obvious as well. And it's like, it's going to be quite difficult because I think, of course, Leroy was saying before how with Toast matchups, it's all aggro and, you know, against Mysterious, that's why he managed to reverse sweep that and not an issue. And do you reckon it could be a very similar outcome?
Yeah, I think it might be the Priest, which is going to be the difficulty for DeadDraw to get his win with. Say with the previous game with Mysterious, even though, you know, he's 2-0 up, that Paladin is incredibly weak against DeadDraw's entire lineup. So you say, oh, it's 3-0, he just needs to win one. He got very close, but it's not always the case where that's going to happen. And the Priest might be the same in this situation, where DeadDraw might take the 2-0 lead, and then the Priest just falls out of his face.
Do you suspect that the best matchups of the Priest are sort of the Zoo, where he'll be obviously looking to get a good, potentially a Pyromancer start if he has the coin, but more likely a Duskbreaker, which just decimates a board?
Any AoE you can get is absolutely pivotal, whether it is with like Pyromancer, Coin, Powered Shield, that sort of thing, or the Duskbreaker. I mean, the 3 damage AoE effect is so strong against a lot of Toastmonster's minions, especially if he doesn't get the Kaliseth buff off early. Just kind of the chain gangs, the 3 HP point is so kind of pivotal.
To be fair, at this stage, any AoE is good AoE, in all fairness, it's completely understandable. And one thing I'll talk about is obviously with Toastmonster Zoolock. Now, we haven't really seen much Zoo this tournament the entire time, and you know, I think it's been playing well quite in his favour, you would say. Yeah,
and we're about to see the matchup we're talking about as well. I think from that small part of the screen we could see that what we're seeing is Zoo versus Priest coming up. So we get to see him go for the Duskbreakers, get to see if he can deal with the initial aggressive start that Zoo puts out. And then from there on he gets to Scream and he has his own Primordial Drakes.
One slight disadvantage with Toastmonster in this lineup in particular is he's running Just Saying's most recent list, so there's got the Blood Knight and a Tar Creeper rather than the 2 doubling imps. If you do get the Soul Infusion and doubling imp, getting 2 4/4s against Priest, I'm not going to do the caster meme, but having 2 4/4s that early against a Priest is incredibly difficult to deal with. It gets it out of the range of the Duskbreaker. Yeah. But he doesn't have that. The Tar Creeper is quite slow. It's only a 1/5 on your turn, and the Blood Knight isn't going to get that kind of... It might actually get... He does have Giggling Inventor in the pre-so, doesn't he?
He does.
That could actually work better in his favour.
But it might be a situation where, as a Zoo, you can't really hold your cards too much. You have to play for board. You have to understand that the longer the game goes on, the more likely they are to have the Psychic Scream, the Duskbreaker, the Primordial Drake. There's so much AoE in the Priest deck that you have to really go in early and go in hard.
This is a really strong start. Coming out with the early Soul Infusion, often you see a lot of people try and hold it for the most optimal buffing of the doubling imp, the chain gang, to get that kind of +4/+4 effect. But going in this early on turn 2, there's a lot of stats already on the board, and it can only grow further. The healing kind of almost counteracts. DeadDraw can't just heal now because it just buffs that damage to the Light Ward.
Well, this is issue as well. And that double imp you were talking about before, that's actually makes perfect sense because, yeah, with that Tar Creep, it's like I said before, it's not very, it plays a lot more passive because of that, but maybe if he was against other aggro lineups, do you reckon that's why he had that to trade round instead?
It's kind of what you expect from the specific lineups against. Say the Blood Knight was brought because, say, Quest Rogue, there's a lot of, Wax Elementals or Giggling Inventors. I mean, just Giggling Inventor in general is a very useful card in so many different decks that it's worth bringing those kind of tech cards in a way. And the Tar Creeper kind of goes in a rotation where a lot of people bring it, so then people start kind of targeting it, and then it gets a lot weaker. So kind of coming around where it's now really good in those aggressive decks at protecting your other minions.
That was an interesting turn there from Toastmonster, actually, where he drew the Keleseth and he had the Librarian in hand, and he wanted to play around the outs a little bit. He wanted to play around Duskbreaker, but instead, because you have Keleseth and you have the draw card, you just play him, and you just hope that there isn't a Duskbreaker there for you.
Any reason why you wouldn't play the second Light Warden there? Get like a 7/2? Maybe because it's not quite lethal. It's incredibly close. 1 damage off lethal on turn 4.
That is crazy stuff, but, how many times have we seen that in ladder?
Happens now and again, but turn 4 lethal with Zoo is something quite exceptional.
Yeah.
Maybe he just wants to save it back until, say, a turn where the board is removed, you play the Light Warden, and if DeadDraw wants to then heal, it then just buffs the Light Warden further. So maybe it's just saving as like a little bit of insurance.
That does make a little bit of sense, though. So, yeah, you were saying about insurance and all those bits and pieces. Like, he's already got one on the board anyway, and I think he just feels like, he might want to save it for another opportunity, but it depends how many times he taps and how quick can he actually get the other one at all.
Second Soulfire, you never like to see that because the chances of you discarding the other Soulfire is quite high. So in this case, it's going to be 100%. Over the next few turns, presumably he's not going to want to discard any minions he now draws.
So what's happened is DeadDraw has actually managed, using the cards that we sort of predicted and said would come out, he's managed to stave off the early game.
He might have lethal here if he taps and goes for the Soulfire and doesn't discard the other Soulfire. So this is a lethal 66% of the time, and he gets it.
Oh, I was going to say, because it's a 1 in 3, but it's like I said, I've seen some weird things in the past. I think there's one where they used to brawl and there's like a 12.5% chance of one of the minions surviving. It did. I think that was in a couple of weeks ago anyway, but after that so far.
It's important to get that win there because DeadDraw was on the verge of turning the tables there and kind of clawing back the victory.
That's absolutely right. And now 1-1 already. It's already shaping to be a quick series. I did mention before, obviously considering the circumstances of both lineups. Now Toast does make that comeback, and yeah, you're absolutely right there. Of course, if you left it a couple more turns, it gets to the stage where DeadDraw can stabilize, and then it gives the Zoolock a little bit less of a chance, and eventually, no matter how many taps you do, won't make too much of a difference.
No, I think he was he got the very big start there. The Pyromancer as well was quite interesting. It was a turn we didn't talk about too much at the time, but what happened is DeadDraw used the Pyromancer and Power Word Shield to take everything off, well, to damage everything on the board, but not actually kill anything.
And soften them up.
And he was looking to get a Duskbreaker draw next turn in order to clear the board and actually try and survive. What happened is then Toastmonster drew the heals, buffed his Light Warden. The rest is history. All she wrote.
One thing I was going to mention as well, because we've got that even lock from DeadDraw's side, and even though it does quite well against Rogue, depending on the mulligan what you actually get with the Defiles, the Hellfires, and all those bits and pieces, against the Hunter it can be a little bit hit and miss if it was a Death Rattle Hunter, but from what I know, I think he's playing a Secret Hunter, so it can play a little bit more differently.
Secret Hunter seems like it seems a little bit of an inconsistent deck. It can win by turn 5 if you manage to get the Spell Stone activated. You get a very big Secret Keeper on turn 1. You can even get the kind of Beast package, play the Dire Mole, you buff it, Kraken Razor Maw, Animal Companion, and you can have them dead very quickly. But it can also take it very slow, and you can even win games against the Warlock with Death Stalker Rexar, just slowly edging out the game. But in this scenario, we've got the Priest against the Rogue.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a shame. He's got that Squire. Sadly, doesn't have Cold Blood to complement it a little bit more, but so far, not too bad.
It's interesting because he'll be sat there thinking. He'll be thinking, do I want to play this Argent Squire? Then next turn, my opponent bumps in the Cleric, heals the Cleric to draw a card, and then I can obviously go Cleric and Dagger next turn to kill the Cleric. Or do I want to wait and see if there's a way that I can play a 3-3, he's got a couple of his hands ready, and trade the cleric away without actually giving him a card draw? How much does he value that sort of tempo or that push in the early game? I think he won't play anything. I think that if it was a Diamol, the Diamol would be able to do the same sort of thing and survive afterwards, which would make it a lot better and a lot sort of more meaningful, which is why Diamol is just better in this deck than Argent Squire, but you can't play 4 Diamols, you have to play other one.
Well, you can, because you can run 2 of the Crystallizers.
Oh,
the one that
yeah,
you take
he's not.
5 damage and you get 5 armor. Bit fringe, some people are playing it, but...
I thought you said cringe then. A little bit cringe. But yeah, looking at this now from DeadDraw side of things, as you can see, you've got that Dustbreaker for the AoE for later on. Got Giggling Inventor as well, just to hold him back further if things get a little bit out of hand. And then even then, you can even steal any 2 attack or below minion after that. So for 4, 5, and 6, he's in a good spot.
He's in a good spot, but it'll be interesting to see whether Toastmonster feels like he's in a need where he needs to temp out one of his 3 drops that he's got without getting value out of the battle cry. And it'll be interesting to see whether he decides that he'd rather have SI7 agent in hand or Blood Knight in hand, especially knowing what DeadDraw's deck is like and knowing that the Giggling Inventor is there.
That last time, what did you think about coin SI7? Instead of daggering up, you have a 3-3 on board instead of having a 2-1 dagger. It's
something that Toastmonster was definitely thinking about. I think he's come to the decision himself that it's probably more useful for him to have the Vile Spine Slayer and the coin in hand as a combination that deals with something early that could come from DeadDraw next turn, like a Twilight Drake, for example, which will contest his Hench Clan Thug a bit better.
His Hench Clan is absolutely pivotal. Coming down this early means he can actually buff the health on it and get it out of that 3 damage range. That we do see the Dustbreaker in hand. No Dragon to accompany it yet, but that could always change.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. I was keen to see if he actually would get it eventually, but that was literally the perfect opportunity for him to actually draw that Thug now. So we'll have to see over these next couple of turns how he's going to deal with that situation.
Yeah, I think what he'll do is he'll be looking to just pick up AoEs. I think the card that he's probably thinking about the most at the moment is Psychic Scream. The way that it would work is if he got a Psychic Scream in his hand, he wouldn't be scared about playing the Giggling Inventor because he knows that the Blood Knight would come down. A couple of cards are probably accompanying that, seeing as they'd be at a 6 or 7 mana turn, and then he could scream it all away. The Battle Cry is denied, the other minions on board are denied, and he's in a good spot again. As it stands, pressure is mounting. He doesn't have any good AoE options this turn. He might be forced into just playing the Giggling Inventor and hoping that there's no Blood Knight and that he can sort of survive this somehow.
Yeah, he's going to find out, sadly, that he will have that, and he's not going to have the best of times, Ben.
Absolutely not. I was just going to say I really like using the coin last turn. Some people might have thought you just coin just to get a little bit of extra damage and re-equipping the dagger. But it buffed the Thug, it gave you an extra 2 damage, and it meant the weapon could go face, and you're just getting them closer and closer to damage to killing them. Blood Knight here, you can just dagger off the 1-2, and the SI7 goes into the other. Question is, are you going to go face, or are you scared of the 2-1 potentially going back into the deck with the Psychic Scream?
Well, Psychic Scream doesn't come out this turn. He's got 6 mana, which is why it's so awkward. He's probably... Toastmonster's sat there, and his thought isn't anything about that. He's just thinking, can I Cold Blood here? Can I push the damage? Or do I sort of want to dagger up and take a bit more time? I think taking time is probably a better idea, because he's going to kill him next turn anyway. He's got the lethal, and there's very little that DeadDraw can have in terms of answers that actually deal with anything that's happening here. He doesn't run Shadow of Death. He doesn't run any sort of silence effects or removal that'll help him cope here.
Yeah, Anduin's the only thing, and that's still another 2 turns away. The other advantage of holding back the Cold Blood for another turn is you can use it as a combo activator or use it with a charge minion. You do have the Leroy.
That's lethal.
That is, yeah. And funny enough, he did actually have another Thug to play around with if he wanted to, just due to the fact that he didn't have any Psychic Screams at all, which is quite an interesting one, Willie. He did have an opportunity before with that Shadow Vision to take it, but I think he thought he was in a good enough spot to maybe just continue on from there and just use something else instead. But just like that, already 2-1 to Toastmonster. It's only got that 1 deck left remaining, which is that Secret Hunter.
So Ben, as someone who's lost a lot on stage, what are you thinking about here? Let's say it's you're 2-1 down. It's your elimination game. Yep. You're sat there in these very deep, luxurious chairs.
They're very comfortable.
Yeah. What's going through your head right now if you're DeadDraw?
If you're DeadDraw, you just need to kind of focus. You need to kind of ignore the fantastic decor and just forget the people are there. Just focus on the games. It's kind of having like the blinkers of the racehorse. You can't see anything else other than the screen. You see kind of ball control, adapt the pose. I'm sure everyone knows.
Do you not like poke your head above the screen and stare into the soul of your opponent?
I know you like doing that, but there's a reason why you're casting and you're not on the stage.
Yeah, I do like that though, because he's like, when he's actually doing that, it's like he's trying to be telepathic to see exactly what's going on.
He's trying to see the other cards, kind of minty.
This is it. This is probably why he's winning 2-1 actually. It's technically cheating, but you know, this is the kind of situation we're in now. So of course, like I mentioned before, Toastmonster with that Secret Hunter left, and with the even lock as well, if it was Death Rattle, then it can be very 50-50 depending on what the even lock gets to begin with, because there's so many varying ways to actually deal with it, and of course with the exit that would have been a bit of a problem. But with the Secret Hunters, like you mentioned before, Ben, it's like, you know, things can happen quite fast, but it depends on the type of scenario he's in, especially off the bat.
There's a card here which I don't think many people have seen and hasn't seen him that much play this weekend, which is the Curse of Weakness, where it's an echo card, so you can play it over and over again, and it has the interesting effect where the debuff on the attack sticks on your opponent's next turn. So it's kind of like almost a Frost Nova style effect, where you kind of pause the board as it is, and then it can give you time to set up a better Defile or Hellfire on a later turn.
And just looking at the moment, it does at least one Giant anyway, does have that Spellstone if it does want to keep it, if things get a little bit out of hand. And even though the Giants can be good, it's like, especially at this stage of the game, right at the very beginning, if you don't have a Sun 3 Protector or anything like that just to keep them at bay, then it can be a little bit difficult. But even though he does have that Reaver, it's, you know, it's still way, way too early to have, and you'll have to see how it goes from there.
It's very difficult to keep that Giant in the starter hand against Warlock, because in some other matchups, you're absolutely free to just tap, tap, tap Giant. Against a Warlock, you kind of need to, A, preserve the health you do have, because the Hunter is going to be pushing a lot of that damage as well. You can't just take that 6 free damage. And you kind of need to be putting stuff on board more, maybe even like playing the Homunculus, play to Beetles, just having a 2-drop that can slightly contest.
Well, I was going to say the opposite, actually.
Eh?
I've said that... Well,
Okay.
I've been talking a lot about this Hunter deck with Ball Control, because it's sort of his deck, it's his baby. He knows it best. He knows it sort of on ladder, and he's hit sort of very, very high sort of top 10 finishes with it. He said to me that if you play against the even lock should just keep Giant. They should just keep Giant, play the Giant, and they just kill you with it, because you don't actually have ways to deal with it that aren't a freezing trap or sort of a wandering monster that gets a bit lucky.
There's no Hunter's Mark in this version of the
Exactly.
deck.
So it's very fortunate for DeadDraw then that he's picked up the Giant, and you can think if he wants to, he'll be thinking about whether he wants to tempo out the use or whether he wants to play the Giant next turn, which he can anyway, actually, because it will cost 4 when he draws the card.
That's the one thing with this deck, is even if you throw away cards, because of you having 2 copies of the card and the amount of consistency you have with tapping, you do have a very good chance of drawing those kind of cards back again anyway.
Yeah, so he's going to drop the Giant here, and somewhere behind stage, Ball Control will go, yeah, he's played the Giant.
Now, there's always the eternal debate, do you take the free tap or not? As the Mountain Giant would cost the same if you take the Hero Power or not.
It comes down to whether he's got the cards in hand. So that's what he's thinking. He's thinking, do I have Hellfire? Do I have a way to cope with the Spellstone? He doesn't at the moment, so he's looking for it.
Yeah.
I'm interested more in sort of this Hunter deck in general. So me and Lethal, we've sat here, we've watched a bunch of games today.
Chilling.
Yeah, we've sat here chilling, and we've watched this Hunter deck lose over and over and over again. It's been the bane of so many lineups.
But it's also must have won a few times for it to have got this far in the tournament overall.
It's really a hit and miss deck, really, depending on the circumstances. It depends on the situation now. And, you know, as we can see at the moment, he's got a Giant down. Does have that Drake for later if he wants to keep trading off for any reasons, and have that Vulgar to keep him at bay as well. So, got plenty of opportunities here.
Having the double Vulgar Homunculus and the Spellstone is a huge. Not only is it the benefit of removing a minion, getting that extra 7 health back means the Vulgar Homunculus kind of comes down with no downside. It's just a 2-mana 2/4 with Taunt, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. And I think DeadDraw here, he's working out how much health he wants to take, because that obviously reaches a point. You said it has no downside. It just becomes 7 damage. But do you really want to start taking damage this soon without a target that's sort of useful for the Spellstone to hit? You don't want to have to end up Spellstoning your own minions, for example, just to heal out of range of a couple of kill commands and a hero power.
That is true, but you do kind of have the pause button in a way. Let's just say Toastmonster did, in fact, have the Spellstone to play down this turn. DeadDraw could be in a scenario where he kind of procs the secrets he wants to and then play the Curse of Weakness. Because the Toastmonster's minions are relatively low in power, maximum, say, 3-4, that would just go down to 0, and it gives him like a whole another turn to kind of come back and kind of do the trades he wants to.
And one thing I like as well is the fact you both spoke about how, you know, DeadDraw wants to decide exactly how much health he wants to take. And so now that you said that he has that kill command as well, if he gets a 4-2 from that companion as well, you know, could be over quite early.
Yeah, that's what I really meant. When I was talking about the Spellstone, I wasn't talking about the Hunter one, I was talking about DeadDraw's one.
Yeah.
Where he wants to buff his Spellstone, sure, but he wants to make sure there's targets for it. If, for example, Toastmonster had a hand that was kill command, hero power, he'd just go face. He'd just ship all the damage face, and DeadDraw has to use his entire turn removing his own minion to heal if he's sort of taken enough damage. This way, he gets to sort of well, Toastmonster's played for board, which is probably more expected. It's the conclusion he came to too, and he's able to take a bit more time to pop the traps, use the spell stone to heal, potentially take the game longer, which is where he wins it. DeadDraw wins this in the long game, not the short game.
So it looks like he might want to go for proccing all the secrets so they're out of the way and going for the double curse of weakness, Doomsayer. So it's a completely empty board. There are no secrets developed at this point. Then you can kind of heal back next turn with the Shroom Brewer, something like that. You might feel brave enough to play like a big Drake. But it's kind of strange. We haven't seen, say, the Frostnova Doomsayer effect in Made for a very long time. Kind of getting it in here. But actually, he's going for a small curse of weakness. And now this is interesting. The poison minion can't attack. So he can't kill anything.
Yeah, this is it. He can't trade off anything at all because he would go straight for that 7/7. But yeah, with 0 attack, he's not really that easy to them in the circumstances now. But he can take out that 7/7 anyway in other ways. But this is where you've got to talk about whether you have to use a kill command or
he gets Leon from this and makes the Venom a 1/4, or it may say a 1 attack, so then it could actually attack. Because it's whenever a minion takes damage, it becomes poisonous.
Oh, it wouldn't do that.
The
way that
there's a 1/3,
it's quite interesting that the way that it works is the way that Curse of Weakness works. If you play it, oh,
he only played it once because it was so it's not -4, but yes, I see what you.
Okay. Well, I like DeadDraw's turn there. He went face with the Giant, and that's what he was thinking about. He was thinking about whether he wanted to go face with the Giant, play his 7/7, and potentially try and set up lethal in 2 turns, because it didn't set up lethal in the immediate, but it potentially gave him a way to kill him over, well, over the next couple of turns and get there before things, well, sort of get tricky. As it stands, he's probably thinking about trading this Homunculus in, proccing the Snake Trap or the Venom Strike Trap that's there, Hellfiring, and then setting up lethal next turn again, which is, well, what's been enabled by the Curse of Weakness that Ben was describing earlier, where he's been able to pause the board once, hit face with the Giant, and then go again to kill him before Toast even has a chance to kill him back.
Yeah, that was a really good time to have that Hellfire, like you mentioned. And now that he's propped everything, completely cleared the board, he hasn't really got too much to do. That Mossy Horror, of course, not going to do anything for him. And just like that, DeadDraw will tie things up 2-2. And already now a game 5 between these two guys. So, of course, Toast will be using that Secret Hunter again against DeadDraw's Priest. And, yeah, it should be an interesting one, guys.
It's going to be very interesting.
It's going to be down to his Priest whether they can get it or not.
Pretty much.
Well, they're both sat there and they're both aware that this is it. This is the game that either secures you history as the finalist of Season 5 or just someone who was forgotten. No one remembers who came 3rd place. Do you know who came 3rd place at the World Cup?
What? Oh, just...
Exactly.
No.
No one remembers 3rd place.
Oh, wait, let me think.
Cut to 2 hours later.
Yeah, do you know what, actually? Do you know what? When we finish this, I'll probably remember. It's like one of those things where it's
Belgium.
like, yeah. Oh, of course it's
Belgium.
Yeah,
but no one remembers 3rd place. No one remembers who came 3rd place. So they're both sat there. They're both sat there thinking that it's very vital. These are the key turns where their tournament basically hangs in the balance. And although I can't say I've ever been there myself,
Are you sure?
I can say that the feeling of being eliminated on stage isn't one that's pleasant, and it's not something that you want to be a part of, especially when we've got such a great crowd in as well. They all look like they're enjoying it.
Well, this is exactly it, and I suppose that's why you wanted to cast, because you was like, you know, I don't really fancy being embarrassed on stage. It's all right. It's one of those things. It's why I do this as well. It's understandable. You know, we've got the same mutual agreement on that. And now, though, how do you think between these two decks how it's going to play out? Because you did speak about before about how it works with Secret Hunter against this deck. Any thoughts on it at all?
It's going to be interesting. I know for sure Paradox is going to want DeadDraw to win this, because here Paradox is in such a better position if DeadDraw goes through to have him in the finals. As for this matchup, both decks can be inconsistent. Both decks can just draw what they need to and win immediately. I think Hunter might have a slight edge, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So
it could be based on like whatever the mulligan is for Toast. If it's semi-decent or decent enough, then you could just go away with it.
Or if DeadDraw gets the Dustbreaker, you know, it does immediately eliminates the Spellstone alone. Yeah, that's saved him quite a lot in these previous matchups as well. He always seems to get it when he wants to, you know. The game likes him.
The game does like him.
Yeah.
This is his comfort pick, though. This is his deck. This is the deck that, when he's sat backstage, he's playing Priest on ladder, and he's playing it well. Ball Control was actually, he was stood there behind him watching him, and he was just amazed at how DeadDraw would just win unfavourable matchups. He'd win all of the matchups that you're just like, this is why you don't play Priest. And it wasn't even a problem for him. He just knows his deck inside out, which is, again, why he went for that Pyro play with the shield earlier. He just knows what he's doing, and he understands the outs and what he's playing towards. When it comes to the Hunter deck, it's been less popular on ladder recently. It's not been as apparent, so he can't have practiced against it too much or sort of played 200 games over the course of 3 months. But what he can do is know his own deck. He can know his outs and he can anticipate his opponent, which will...
Ooh, okay.
Both players have absolutely stellar hands, but as Toast, you'll like this, Nick. As Toast went first, he now has the advantage of going the 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, he's gone first as Hunter, and he's got the Beast curve. He's got the 1-3 into Razormaw, Animal Companion, and Houndmaster, which is just a phenomenal start to a game, and it's probably something that's going to be very difficult for DeadDraw to get back from, unless he gets like...
Well, he got the attack and poison. If he avoided attack or poison, there is a scenario where the Pyro, Norshai, Coin, Divine him, you kind of heal back a lot of that early damage you miss, and you draw a bunch of cards, which is exactly what you want when you need the Dustbreaker and the Dragon or the Psychic Screams later on. But as he's got the attack, he's going to be able to eliminate that issue immediately.
And this is a great thing as well, because it gives that Pyromancer not too much use. But also, there is multiple ways around this. As you can see, he's got that Shadow Vision and his Coin anyway, if he wants to clear this out.
Yeah, it basically comes down to DeadDraw. Again, he knows his deck. He's going to pick this Power Word Shield every time, and next turn he's going to go Pyromancer, Coin, Shield, potentially even being a bit greedy and maybe waiting a turn to involve the Divine Spirit instead of wasting his Coin. But he needs to clear this board, and he needs to clear it quickly.
That's actually bad
damage.
In the weird scenario, the Huff is actually the worst minion to get there, as it's going to be dying to the Pyro Coin, Powered Shield, or Pyro Coin, Divine Him.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting one, because of course if he did get the 2-4, the rest of them would be +1, so at least he can do this similar amount of damage anyway. That 4-4 taunt would have been good just due to the health and the fact that he'd be able to survive and maybe trail the Pyromancer if he really wants to. But I mean, yeah, it's like a good and bad, really.
All you want is a beast to have stuck, even if it was a 0-2 at that point. The Houndmaster having that effect and Measly to have another 4-3 minion and pushing even more damage to the face would have been amazing.
And he finds himself in a difficult position again, though, because the flanking strike, again, the 1, 2, 3, 4 curve, he had a choice of whether he would be playing a reactive 4-drop or a proactive 4-drop there, depending on how DeadDraw played the game. And he's still ahead, and he's still pushing damage, and he's still going to be presenting boards that DeadDraw has to really, really work out how to clear. And it could be that he needs to get exactly like a Giggling Inventor into the Holy Fire on something big, into the Psychic Scream where he survives with 10 health, and that's what he'll be doing. While Toastmonster is thinking about how much he wants to commit to the board, DeadDraw sat there thinking about not only the draws that he needs, but how he's going to play out the rest of his turns for the game in order to actually win and progress in this tournament.
Even though it looks like DeadDraw is in some sort of trouble, he is holding 17 healing in the hand at the moment, has a Psychic Scream, and has a big taunt in the Primordial Drake. So if he can kind of stem the damage, he needs a really good turn here. I'm not sure he's going to get it.
No, it doesn't look like it at all. It's like what Leroy was saying before, whether he wants to commit to the board and at least try and make something out of it, or maybe just use the Houndmaster, buff the minion, and then just wait for a little bit to see if there's another opportunity to use that Diamol, maybe to adapt it another way, maybe if he gets the opportunity, but it doesn't look like that stage. But you are right, though, we'll just stick to that health and just try and stay alive just for that bit longer until he finds another outcome.
I think Toast is going to be really hungry to get the win here. He wants to kind of exact his revenge from earlier this year and take down the trophy. He's had a really stellar year. He's been going to tour stops all over the world. And he's on the HGG team, which is doing incredibly well this year. They're 1 win away from going to BlizzCon. And I think if he can just have a trophy, that would just validate his year. He's taking off to play Hearthstone. Yeah,
it will basically boost his confidence because, we spoke about how he won I-63 before and a couple of things. But even though the small wins here and there, it does boost your confidence up a little bit. It depends, it doesn't matter how small or big the tournament is, but of course, if you do win BlizzCon, then you'll be over the moon. And, it makes perfect sense. But even though winning this Prem or winning the event beforehand, it does boost your confidence up more and more and makes you realize, not just stabilize you as a player, but it's good just for yourself mentality-wise.
Toastmonster took a while there. And why he was taking so long is because he was working out exactly how he loses the game, because that's way more important at this point. He's so far ahead, he's got board, he's got a good hero power. He was thinking, if I play the Rexar, it sort of removes the damage and the ability for me to push through the game. If I play both of my secrets, it means that a Spellstone top deck is less good for me because I won't be able to buff it as well in the future. And he knows that his opponent isn't going to be able to proc this Venom Strike trap anytime soon, so he's played the Freezing Trap instead, which is more likely to be procced by his opponent too.
This was a really interesting turn. He could have started thinking, actually, I'm not going to get them with the minion damage anymore, and he might have to go with Rexar. There's not much point doing it this turn specifically because you can't get that extra hero power anyway. So he might wait one more turn, think, can I get the damage if, let's say, there's a Psychic Scream here and he draws another secret? Even though he's only going to be on 8 till 10 health, it still might not be enough. And maybe you need the Rexar minions with the Builder Beast to just push him over the edge. What do you think? Or do you think the steady shot is going to be enough?
Well, it's not for me to decide, is it? We're just here to say what for example, Toastmonster's thinking, and that's for him. That's his decision. For me, it looks very difficult. I think you probably stick with a steady shot depending on what you draw. If for example, he draws a Spellstone, he'll be loving life. He'll probably be playing that. If he draws something that's a bit rubbish, like another secret or one of his secret keepers, another 1-drop, he won't be too thrilled about that. The decision making will change, and he'll have to work out whether he actually needs to play this Rexar here, which is what he's doing right now. Yeah,
that was an interesting turn as well, because he had a couple of choices there. He could use Psychic Scream just to clear those 2 minions, but it's a little bit of a waste considering he could save it for another day anyway, but decided to get that 6 health back anyway, take away a little bit of that damage from the Houndmaster just to keep him at bay, just due to the fact that in any kind of scenario he'll be okay. So I don't mind that play.
Yeah, it's interesting. It shows his mastery of the deck. He's counted his damage. He knows his health. He knows he's so aware of what the opponent can do that he's saving the Psychic Scream because he knows that at some point it could be that he's having to deal with these Builder Beast minions that are coming down and actually answering things that he isn't equipped to deal with yet with the rest of his hand.
Yeah, because at this point you kind of DeadDraw's actually used all of the natural healing in his deck. He's used both Divine Hymns without getting any of them from the Visions. Because sometimes you can get like extra healing out of getting those cards with the repeated effects. But so DeadDraw's always going to get this 2 healing a turn. So that it kind of work out how many more turns he has left to try and kill him. And it wasn't going to be enough with the steady shot alone.
Yeah, so of course he managed to choose that minion anyway from his hero power just due to the fact that you get that taunt anyway and all those other bits and pieces, which is fair enough anyway. But what do you think Toast needs to do now? Of course, we can say the simple answer where he just keeps building up those zombies or any other minion to try and at least capitalize on the situation. But it's looking slowly more and more difficult.
I think what he'll be looking for is he'll be looking for Tundra Rhino, stealth. That's what happens.
The silence could be quite pivotal here, actually, getting through the Prim Drake.
You go for a Tundra Rhino with stealth, and what you do is you aim to stick a beast every turn. But because it gives you much more initiative, because everything you play has charge, it just reduces his turns even further and reduces his health even further, which is fairly pivotal right now, seeing as DeadDraw's literally only at 15, well, even less now, health.
That's actually a really good owl. Not only does it kind of remove the taunt for this turn, it has stealth and poison, so it might remove another taunt from the next turn, because you can just bash the owl straight into it and you push even more damage. This might make DeadDraw have to Psychic Scream.
Well, the Psychic Scream is actually really quite good. If he identifies that this is a snake trap, he can bump his Primordial Drake into the Houndmaster, procking the snake trap, Psychic Scream, send a bunch of snakes and other rubbish draws back into his opponent's deck, and that will buy him the time he needs to potentially get his Anduin online, get the Mind Blasts going, and also draw an Alexstrasza, which is probably on his mind as well, so that he can either heal himself up, because he'll be out of any sort of healing options, or he didn't decide to pop the snake trap.
I might have thought it was a Wandering Monster, to be fair, perhaps.
Yeah, that's quite true as well. And of course, with the Anduin, that's a good thing about what Toast and what he's doing at the moment. The minions he was building out with the owl, other bits and pieces, and make sure it stays below 5 attack at all times, just to make some kind of use of the poison. But didn't even need the poison in the end after that Psychic Scream.
This is interesting. You go for the Life Drinker as it's just directly more damage right now, or go for the Subject 9 to draw through his maybe 2 or 3 secrets left in the deck to kind of thin the deck to increase the average draw for, say, another kill command or tracking. Yeah. Goes for the direct damage, which I can wholeheartedly agree with.
Yeah, and it plays a little bit into the Anduin as well, which is quite interesting. This gives DeadDraw an opportunity to start piecing together his combo, because it's okay to be able to clear the board. It's okay to be able to deal with the minions that your opponent plays. What you actually really need to do, which is sort of more vital, is kill him. He's got the Deathstalker Rexar hero power, which is just beasts every turn at the cost of no card. If this goes on for a long time, it's going to get sort of difficult for DeadDraw to cope with that. So I don't know if it was necessarily something on Toastmonster's mind. He might have thought that the Anduin would have come down a couple of turns ago, because there was probably some turns that were sort of a bit slower where things could have happened. Do
you feel like now that Toast has got to a point where he's going to try and play him into fatigue with all the Psychic Screams and all those bits and pieces?
Fatigue is going to be very tricky, just because you play minions every turn, and you do have the one Psychic Scream, and the hero power does deal damage to the board. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to push, 31 to the face. If he gets the Alexstrasza, it's very difficult to work out what he's going to do going forward. I don't think fatigue is quite going to be the option, though.
No, I think Toastmonster struggles to play for fatigue simply because he knows that if he waits the longest time, DeadDraw will be able to Alex Strasser him. He will be able to push through a lot of damage with the hero. What he's trying to do is he's just trying to present a threat every turn. He's trying to present so much, or so many problems, that DeadDraw is sort of wasting his resources. Let's see, even here, he has to ping the minion because he's eventually going to have to take that down. He just has to waste his resources on that and not push enough damage, sort of make things a bit sort of faster.
One advantage that Toastmonster does have right now is having the Handmaster Shore in hand. It means he can use those minions that have come out of play this turn, have rush. They can compete with the board and allow this new minion that's already existing on the board to go face. And it kind of, so you'll see the Houndmaster and the Kraken Razor Maul remove the board, get to push 8 damage to face and continue that damage and pressure. I
do love what he's done as well. It's like straight off the bat, instead of playing the Houndmaster first, he just wanted to adapt and see exactly what he could get, because if not, then the Houndmaster might not be, not just the fact it's efficient or cost effective, but at least it gives him a better opportunity to use it, manage to get it, and of course get that 10 damage down. But instead he just wants to trade, see how things go, force him to use another Psychic Scream, which he's done. It's not a bad play.
Toastmonster is always going to have something on the board. The one way I think DeadDraw does win is through an Alex Strasser to the face, then Mind Blast, and a few of the pings. That would be exactly lethal for the 16, even with that 1 point of armor. But I don't think Toast is ever going to leave a scenario where DeadDraw can play a 9-mana Alex.
He might not have a choice at some point. It might be that the way that it works out is that there's a zombies that doesn't kill him, things get tricky. Here, though, he's going to need to find something to answer this. As we said, eventually he just runs out of ways to answer some of the big beasts that Toastmonster can produce.
No Psychic Scream there, and he's going to try playing the Acolyte, draw a card by pinging it himself. That only leaves him 5 mana. I'm not sure if there's anything left. There's no Shadow Word Death. I think that might mean it's Toast series.
Well, there's a Giggling Inventor, isn't there?
There is, absolutely correct, actually. Good point.
And sadly, not for him, he actually managed to get a Drake in the end, and yeah, it's literally just running out of options, you're right. Of course, yeah, he's got to have some kind of board presence all the time to at least keep DeadDraw on his toes, but I think he finally does realise that at this stage, doesn't really
needs 1 damage.
He's 1 damage off lethal. He's going to search for it with the Builder Beasts. I think on the second choice, you can always get Stone Tusk Boar, which can go face. So he'll be thinking,
Tundra Rhino,
there's
Stone Tusk Boar, he's got it. It's kind of funny, you're trying to work out there's a Direwolf Alphas, even the little 1-mana Reaver that does 1 damage to the face would have been enough, but that means Toast is going to be in the final, and he's going to give Paradox a big final.
I love how you're talking about that as well, you're looking for that Rhino or anything like that, but managed to get the ball anyway, which is perfect. Toast does manage to take that 3-2 in that series, and will be facing Paradox in that grand final, where we're going to see exactly out of the 2 which one they're going to play. So how do you think that series went, guys?
I'm pretty excited about that. What it means is we've got our hero, we've got Toastmonster, and we've got our villain, we've got Paradox. Our hero, he is less likely to win. He's the one who has to win 2 series to get through this, and everyone loves an underdog, and I'm very excited about this now.
Yeah, with this as well, it's like it could be, it could go to do best of 5s, but any last words from you, Ben?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me, and I'll be avidly watching that from the finals, rooting on Toast. Thanks for having me.
That's right, no problem, Ben, and it's always great to have you on board as well to give us more of an analytical opinion, probably better than us anyway. Okay, yeah. I probably won't say that for you, because you'll probably argue that and go, well, I don't know, maybe not, see how it goes. But yeah, this should be a very, very good final as well. Of course, with Toast, with his lineup against Paradox, it's going to be very interesting to see how this pans out. And the other storyline as well is the fact we've got the hero and the villain here to see exactly how things pan out between these 2. But of course, as well with Toast, he's obviously got that opportunity. He can definitely get those 2 best of 5s back to back. And let's be honest, he doesn't want that 2nd place again, does he? And speaking of coming back, Jackie.
I've returned, I know. We have the hero, we have the villain, and unfortunately DeadDraw, he's been stopped in his tracks. He hit a dead end and wasn't able to continue on drawing the correct cards to win the series, Harry, and it all went a bit wrong, didn't it? Not too fantastic for him in the end, but damn did he put up a good fight. I think in terms of showing up to the tournament and displaying what he has as potential, he looked impressive. I think that's fair to say. We've got to give him that.
He's won a fan in me. I'm a big fan of him. He's very humble and he's so good as well. That's the thing. Though he brought his comfort pick, he brought Priest, and it's not the strongest deck in the meta at the moment. It's probably cost him the series, and it's probably cost him the game, as you can see here. I still rate that. I love it when people bring their own decks. I love it when people bring their comfort picks instead of just what everyone else says is good.
I think the difference between the matchup as well is the fact that you saw Mysterious where he almost did a complete 3-0 sweep there, and the only problem was with Mysterious is the fact that the odd pally really wasn't that good enough against most of those decks. Against like Swipe and other things like that, you know, didn't really give much opportunity to even come through in any way, which is why he got reverse swept after that. But I think the lineup for Toastmonster was just a lot more viable, a lot better as well. And even at the end of that last matchup, it could have gone either way depending on the circumstances. But of course, you know, Toastmonster managed to get the minions he wanted from Rexar and managed to crack on from there.
Yeah, being flipped all over like a pancake. It was absolutely ridiculous, but there is a winner, and his name is Toastmonster. And the reason he is a winner, the reason he is powered and prepared to game and has that definition behind him is because of the monitor he uses, and that is an AOC gaming monitor that you too can win. You got to head down to the link that is below. That is going to be esl.iam/EGX AOC giveaway. It's a bit more of a longer one, that one. Normally they're quite short. Tried to caught me off guard, but I did it, Harry.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of you for doing that.
Cheers, Dad.
That's all right, no worries.
You too, magician.
Oh, oh, sorry. I'm just practicing my magic over here.
Yeah.
I'm just conjuring a way that I can get you two together.
That'd be good. Hopefully you can make Harry disappear. That'd be lovely. But we'll all disappear for this one, as we will head on over to see Frankie up on the stage. You never want to see her disappear. We need more Frankie, and I tell you who we definitely need, Toastmonster himself.
We do indeed, but first off, I just want to say hello, Leroy. You were wrong. You said DeadDraw was going to win it all, and I like it when everyone's wrong. I have to say now, Toastmonster. Could you have any words for DeadDraw? Because it was his first time in the Prem, a bit like you last year, and he did incredibly well. You just managed to outwit him in the end.
For DeadDraw, I think it's more that his lineup preparation maybe wasn't great for his side of the bracket. I mean, he had managed to overcome that anyway, but I think for him that's probably the biggest thing. His play in all the series was really good. To be honest, he played better than his opponents and me in most of in that game as well.
And next up, we've got a rematch of a match we saw earlier today, you versus Paradox. Have you got any fighting talk for your fellow finalist?
Well, it's quite inspiring because Paradox is here, because it kind of shows that anyone can show up on the day, play some really bad Hearthstone and still make the finals. And I'm hoping I can, you know, play some bad Hearthstone too.
I mean, you must have played some really terrible Hearthstone earlier, because he did beat you, Toastmonster. So you were a runner-up last year. You got beaten by Big Ben. I'm going to say it, ding dong. But he's already out of the competition, so it's only Paradox standing in your way. What would it mean to you to go one further this year and raise that trophy?
I think it would kind of just cement myself as one of the top players in the UK. I came into my first Prem, fell just short in the bracket reset and came second. And if I can take it home this time, it kind of shows that I'm up there with the best.